guys, welcome back to Vlogmas. In this episode, I am just answering your questions that you guys asked me on Instagram. So I put up a little question box and said, ask me anything training and nutrition related. So let's get right to it. Thoughts on warm-ups and cool-downs. Let's just say warm-ups are necessary. You have to think of it from the perspective of what a warm-up is, and that's literally to get your body warm and prepped for what you're about to do, whether that is lifting or cardio. As far as what you should do, there are some great generic warm-ups you can find right here on YouTube. If you just search like powerlifting warm-up, I think I have one that will probably come up. I can do a new warm-up video, so if that's something that you guys are interested in seeing, maybe it's a full body warm-up, give it a thumbs up. And we actually just finished filming a few different options of warm-ups for our client portal, so all of our clients have access to an exercise video library that we are building right now, so it's ready to go. We just have to upload the videos to it, and that's going to include warm-ups as well. So I think they are obviously very important and necessary if you want to not get injured and if you want to perform your best throughout your training session. Cool downs, I think they're important to an extent, and it kind of depends on what you're doing as far as training goes. If you're doing some kind of high intensity training like Orange Theory or CrossFit, I think a cool down is obviously important. You don't want to get into your car with your heart pumping and, you know, feeling like you're going to pass out. Is it always necessary for a bodybuilding workout? Probably not, but warm-ups are definitely crucial. Question number 2 is, what is an acceptable occasional protein overage number? So if you're tracking your macros, what's like an acceptable number to go over protein with? Generally, we tell our clients you can either be above or below protein and carbs within 10 grams, and fats are within 5 grams. Fats are lower just because fats are higher in calories, so you have less wiggle room there. But you know, we would consider that within range and consistent, quote unquote. You don't have to hit your numbers perfectly every day. We don't make our clients do that at all. If sometimes that number is like totally either above or below and it's just a really off day, it's not the end of the world, so don't stress about it too much. You just don't want that to happen all the time, obviously. What is your current workout split? So I kind of talked about that in my last video, which I will link here if you guys did not see that yet, so I'm not going to answer that here. When starting a home gym, what equipment is best to start with? We also have a video on what we have in our home gym or our garage gym, which we talk about all of our equipment that we got over time. But if you needed to buy something today to start your home gym, I would recommend a good pair of dumbbells that are adjustable. I personally do not like the ones that click, like those Bowflex ones. We have Ironmaster UK, which I really love, and then maybe just a couple of bands. There's just those big super bands, the resistance loops. Those are awesome too. So I would say those are like my top 2 suggestions, and that can work in any space, whether it's a room in your house or your basement, or you're just doing this in your living room. Okay, next question. How do you warm up for each lift? So let's say I'm doing a heavy squat day, for example, and I did my full dynamic body warm-up, like general warm-up, and I'm starting to squat. Basically what I do is I will start with just the bar. I'll do a set with the bar, and then I'll add my first set of plates. So for me, I add the 45-pound plates, and I'll do a set with 135, and then I'll usually add 30 pounds or so, so 165. Then I move to 185, and then I'll get into whatever my working sets are for the day. Obviously, this is going to depend on where you're working up to for that day, but generally I'll make like one bigger jump from just the bar to like a set amount with the plates, and then smaller increments from there. And it also depends on which lift you're lifting to. So like for bench, obviously I don't lift as much for bench as I do with my squat and my deadlift. So I'll start with just the bar. I'll add 10 pounds on each side, and I'll keep adding 10 pounds usually. That's where I'm at right now, at least. So you want to warm up enough that you are prepped to lift your best and perform your best, but you don't want to do so many warm-up sets that you're wasting energy. So it's kind of a fine line, and it's kind of going to be a little bit different for everybody, but that's a good generalized way to explain what I do, and hopefully that helps you guys. I guess this question, she's asking, or she's saying that she's afraid to work out because she's worried that her milk supply will drop. This is a big concern for a lot of postpartum women or new moms, is they're worried about their milk supply, which of course is an understandable worry. That's how you feed your child. But from experience and from what I've read, your nutrition and your water intake is going to affect your milk supply much more than what your workouts are, unless you're doing like Orange Theory or like a super high intensity CrossFit workout. But in my humble opinion, you aren't going to be doing that right away postpartum anyway. So that aside, as long as your nutrition and your hydration status is good, you should be fine. And hydration status is going to change based on what your workouts are, obviously. So if you're sweating more or you're simply just more active for the day, drink more water. So for me personally, the water was the biggest thing. Even there were days towards the end of my breastfeeding journey where I started to cut calories down to aim for fat loss goals, and that didn't affect my milk supply at all. Everybody is a little bit different, of course, but that's just from what I've read and from experience what I can recommend to you guys. And don't stress about it. Stressing about it is probably going to drop your milk supply more than actual training will alone. So, how long did it take to notice a difference in the tightness of your belly postpartum? My belly is still loose. I still have loose skin. I don't know if it will ever go away. I don't really care if it will ever go away. I simply lost body fat. I think that was the biggest difference, but the tightness of my skin I don't think really changed all that much, if at all. Can you talk about weight gain from training inflammation? It's a mind fuck. So this is something that we actually work on with our clients. So we have our clients weigh in every day, and the reason for that is because we take their weekly average. So the more data points that we get throughout the week, the more accurate their weekly average is going to be. And then when we compare each week to see if they're trending up or down, we have a better picture of what's going on. So with that, we also have our clients track biofeedback. So things like sleep, stress, soreness, energy levels, hunger levels, all of those things can impact the scale. But the big issue I see just from this one question is, you are putting so much worth into that scale number when there are other ways that you should be tracking your progress along with that number. So the scale is not the end all be all, and weight gain does not mean fat gain. So inflammation from training is water weight essentially. When you're sore, your muscles hold on to extra water, so that's why the scale goes up. The only other way to get around that is to simply not train, which is just kind of silly when you think about it that way, because the reason why you're training is to improve your body composition. Body composition does not equate to a lower or higher number on the scale. I know that the scale can be a big thing for a lot of people, but it's simply a tool, and you have to get over the fact that it's not the only tool and it's not the end all be all to your progress. Thoughts on attempting fat loss while trying to get pregnant? No. In most cases, I don't see the reason to proceed with the fat loss phase while you're trying to get pregnant, because one, if you're in a fat loss phase, your calories are low and in a deficit. Obviously, that's the only way to lose fat. And when you're in a caloric deficit, your stress levels are increased. And when your stress levels are increased, that's not something that you want when you're trying to get pregnant, because that could potentially affect you getting pregnant or not. And also because once you do get pregnant, you're not going to be continuing that fat loss trend anyway. So I don't know. I personally would say no, unless you are at a very, very, very high level of body fat or considered overweight or obese by a clinician. Did you cut out fake sugars while you were pregnant? No. But do you? If it makes you uncomfortable to consume them, then don't. But there's no scientific evidence that artificial sweeteners negatively impact us in the amounts that we consume them in. If you're drinking like 15 liters of diet soda every day, maybe cut back a little bit, but there is no research to support that. So I continue to have things like stevia and the sugar-free syrup that we use for our waffles, and I'm fine. How long is a proper bulk, and do you go right from a bulk to a cut, or do you reverse in between? So a bulk can be as long as you want it to be, essentially. There is no recommended time frame. I think a bulk can be something that's a lot longer than a cut, and probably should be longer than a cut phase. The reason why there's a time frame that we recommend on a cut phase is because that's a stressor on your body and you're bringing your calories lower and lower and lower. And you obviously don't want to hang out with super low calories for a long time. So as far as that, there is no specific recommendation, and it's going to be kind of individual depending on where you're starting from, what your goals are, etc. And do you go right from a bulk to a cut, or do you reverse in between? I would go from a bulk to a maintenance phase and then do a cut. There's no need to reverse. That's kind of irrelevant, I guess, with this question. A reverse is slowly increasing your calories, and a bulk, you're quickly increasing your calories. So there's no reason for that. But I wouldn't go from bulk to cut. I would give your body some time to maintain and then cut down. Easy gainer here. What's the best training volume if I want to gain strength but not blow up? Regardless of if you're an easy gainer or not, the amount of volume that is going to be right for you is highly independent and individual, and I cannot guess what that is based on this question or even based on a couple of other questions. This is something that we figure out with our clients, and it's kind of on a experimental basis, depending on how your body responds to a set volume amount in each program. So unfortunately, that's not something I can answer. How do you know when it's time to reverse diet? If you have been under eating for a long time and you don't necessarily want to do a full-blown bulk or massing phase, a reverse diet is probably beneficial. Or even if you're at a what I would consider a normal range of calories and you simply want to reverse and eat a little bit more without gaining a lot of body fat, then you can reverse. Pretty much from experience, most people probably should or could reverse diet. What are some compound arm lifts that you would love to see everyone doing? Bench press and any kind of overhead press. Do you train or eat differently based on your menstrual cycle phase? I personally don't. There is some research to support that when you have your period, you have more cravings for fatty foods. So in that case, I would just recommend increasing your fat intake a little bit, and then if you are in a fat loss phase or just maintaining, you could decrease from carbs to even that out, or you could simply just increase a little bit during the few days that you have your period, so you are eating a controlled amount more and then come back down. But I personally don't get that into it, and I just eat my normal intake. It's never been an issue for me. How to increase protein? I'm always low, so this is honestly a quite simple fix. Number one, have a protein supplement. A shake once a day is fine. And then number two is simply to just increase the serving sizes of the protein that you're already eating. So for example, if you are eating 2 ounces of chicken breast with your lunch on your salad every day, increase that to 4 or 5 ounces. Or if you're having a turkey sandwich and you usually have 2 slices of turkey, have 4 slices of turkey. That's another easy way. And then the last tip I have for that is to simply eat foods that are higher in protein, but not necessarily a main protein type of food. So things like, for instance, I eat the Dave's Killer bread every day that has, I think, 5 grams of protein per slice, so 10 grams if I'm having a sandwich. There's a lot of wraps out there that do the same thing, or things like black beans, edamame, different kinds of vegetables that have a higher protein content is another way to do it. Nutrient timing before workouts. Do you bother? Personally, I don't obsess over this as much as I used to when I was a competitive athlete, and I don't think the average person needs to obsess over this, but I do think that you should have a substantial meal anywhere from 1 to 3 hours before you train. Generally speaking, most people will perform better with fuel in their body and not on an empty stomach, so that's what I suggest. Alright, I think we will wrap up the Q&A here. I don't want this video to be extremely long, but I'm always open to answering your guys' questions, so if you have more, you can leave them in the comments or message me. But I hope you enjoyed this little Q&A sesh, and I will see you in the next episode of VLOGMAS. Bye!